Good morning. Today I want to introduce you to the career of architecture. Architects build things. They build bridges, they build buildings, and they have to use a lot of science and math to accomplish this. This story is called Iggy Peck Architect. It was written by Andrea Beatty and illustrated by David Roberts. Young Iggy Peck is an architect and has been since he was 2, when he built a great tower in only an hour with nothing but diapers and glue. "Good gracious, Ignatius," his mother exclaimed, "that's the coolest thing I've ever seen." But her smile faded fast as a light wind blew past and she realized those diapers weren't clean. "Ignatius, my son, what on earth have you done? That's disgusting and nasty. It stinks." But Iggy was gone. He was out on the lawn, using dirt clods to build a great sphinx. When Iggy was 3, his parents could see his unusual passion would stay. He built churches and chapels from peaches and apples, and temples from modeling clay. At dinner one night, to his father's delight, Iggy got a bright gleam in his eye, and out on the porch built the St. Louis Arch from pancakes and coconut pie. Dear Ig had it made until 2nd grade, when his teacher was Miss Lila Greer. On the very first day, she had this to say: "We do not talk of buildings in here. Gothic or Romanesque, I couldn't care less about buildings ancient or new." She said in her lecture about architecture that it had no place in grade 2. That might seem severe, but she was sincere, for when she was no more than 7, she'd had a great fright at a dizzying height in a building so tall it scraped heaven. On an architect's tour of the 95th floor, young Lila got lost from the group. She was found 2 days later in a stuck elevator eating cheese with a French circus troupe. After that day, it's quite safe to say, she thought all building lovers were nuts. As a teacher, she taught that above all, one ought to avoid them, no ifs, ands, or buts. As you might guess, it would cause Iggy stress to hear such terrible talk. But he didn't hear. He sat in the rear while building a castle of chalk. "You, Iggy Peck, your desk is a wreck. Tear down that castle right now. You will not build in here. Is that perfectly clear? Do you need to see Principal Howe?" "No, ma'am," Iggy said. He lowered his head, and his heart sank down to the floor. With no chance to build, his interest was killed. Now 2nd grade was a bore. After 12 long days that passed in a haze of reading, writing, and arithmetic, Miss Greer took the class to Blue River Pass for a hike and an old-fashioned picnic. They crossed an old trestle to a small island nestled in the heart of a burbling stream. But they no sooner passed than the footbridge collapsed, and Miss Lila Greer started to scream. "We're trapped here, oh my, alas kids, goodbye." Her eyeballs rolled back in her head. She dropped to the ground with a vague groaning sound, luckily fainted, not dead. The class was amazed. They stood there quite dazed, uncertain of what they should do. But one bright young man was off hatching a plan, which started with Miss Lila's shoe. Soon each lad and lass there at Blue River Pass was working together as one. And when she came to, Miss Lila Greer knew that something quite brave had been done. She looked in the air and saw hanging there a structure with cables and braces, and on the far side, beaming with pride, were 17 smiling young faces. Boots, tree roots and strings, fruit roll-ups and things, some of which one should not mention, were stretched ridge to ridge in a glorious bridge dangling from shoestring suspension. It all became clear to Miss Lila Greer as she crossed that bridge over the stream. There are worse things to do when you're in grade 2 than to spend your time building a dream. Now every week at Blue River Creek Elementary in 2nd grade, all the school kids can hear, along with Miss Greer, how the world's greatest buildings were made. The weekly guest speaker, in t-shirt and sneakers, talks of buildings from Rome to Quebec. Of course, he's the guy who builds towers from pie, that young brilliant man, Iggy Peck. We just read Iggy Peck, Architect. In this story, Iggy saved Miss Lila Greer and his classmates by building a bridge. But not just any bridge, he built a suspension bridge. I want to talk to you today about why bridges are so strong and a few different types of bridges. So why are bridges so strong? Here's the George Washington Bridge in New York City. This is the world's busiest bridge. It is strong enough to carry so many cars and buses back and forth every day. To build strong bridges, we need special materials like iron and steel. But it takes more than just tough materials to build a strong bridge. So let's look at how bridges work. The first type we're going to look at is a beam bridge. This one's pretty simple, but it will do the job. I'm sure you've seen this type of bridge before. There are columns and a beam going across the top. It can support weight, but as we start to add lots of weight, you may see how this bridge has a flaw. What's happening as I add more and more weight? Can you see it kind of starting to bend in the middle? Eventually, if I add too much weight, this bridge could collapse. So there are stronger bridges than beam bridges. We've learned that certain shapes can be used to make bridges even stronger. Take a look at this railroad bridge. It has to be strong because it carries trains. What shapes do you see? That's right, there's lots of triangles. Triangles are a really strong shape for building. If you put force on one side of a triangle, it bends. But if you put force on its point, it keeps its shape. That's because two sides of the triangle are pushed down by the force and the bottom gets stretched out to both sides. Each side feels the force, but none of them bends, and this makes the triangle a really sturdy and stable shape. This is why you see lots of triangles both above the part that you travel, called the deck, and below it. If you see a long string of triangles, this is going to be called a truss. Trusses help bridges spread out the weight that it has to carry, but not all bridges are made of trusses. If a bridge has to cross a really wide body of water, it might be too difficult or too expensive to build a truss bridge. In this situation, a suspension bridge might be a better option. The Golden Gate Bridge in California is a great example of a suspension bridge. Suspension bridges work by using a force called tension. Tension means pulling something tight. Suspension bridges are made of a deck that's hung or suspended from thick cables that stretch from one side of the bridge to the other. These cables are supported by tall towers and are held down tightly or anchored on both ends. Suspension bridges are strong because the force on the bridge gets spread out. The weight of the cars or train or whatever is traveling across it pulls on the cables, creating tension. Those cables then pull down on the towers and also pull on the anchors on either end of the bridge to hold up the deck. I could go on and on about all the different types of bridges, but basically what I want to tell you is that bridges are not strong just because they're made out of iron and steel. They're strong because of some really clever designs that people have come up with. You can come up with some pretty clever designs too. Try designing your very own building or bridge. At home, you can use all types of building materials for your structure. You could use cardboard, plastic straws, popsicle sticks, toothpicks, anything you can find around your house. To hold your bridge together, you need anything that's sticky. Tape, glue, you could use marshmallows, gummy bears. Think outside the box. Get your family involved. If you have a family member that's willing to build something too, maybe you can make a competition where you build something and they build something and you see which one can support more weight. Be creative and have fun.